Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. Okay. It's going to start again. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us at this Black Women in Care Forum this afternoon. My name is Olayinka, and I'm the founder of Black Women in Care. Black Women in Care started about 3 years ago. And in this space of this short period of time, we have been able to make a lot of changes within the health and social care, especially with Black women that work within the health and social care. And today we are discussing on identifying hormonal health changes and also creating support for women that are working within the health and social care. I believe there's no better time to discuss on the importance of identifying hormonal health. The importance of employee well-being continues to grow even within the health and social care world. And that's focusing on work-life balance, mental health, and enhanced access to medical support. Hence why we're having this forum today. We have a lot of coaches, health coaches that will be speaking. We also have Tricia as well, Pereira, that will be sharing some data with us this afternoon. So welcome once again. And we believe that you would have an insightful day. So over to you, Tricia.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm just about to share some slides. And I hope everybody can see. Okay. I'll just start. My name's Tricia Pereira. I'm Director of Operations here at Skills for Care. And Skills for Care are the strategic workforce development and planning body for adult social care in England. And we work with employers, government and partners to ensure social care has the right people with the right skills and support required to deliver the highest quality care and support now and in the future. And so we respond to any, and we adapt to any of the emerging themes and trends within social care. And we use our data to really advance and evidence and drive forward any wide-scale change. So we also provide best practice guidance and tools and resources. And that's why we're really excited to be part of the session today, because we know that 82% of the adult social care workforce are women. And from our data, we can see that the average age of the workforce has increased over the previous 9 years. So that previously the average age was just over 42 years in age, and it's increased to 44 years. And we know that 28% of the adult social care workforce, the workers, were aged 55 and over. So that's around 430,000 workers who are aged 55 and over. And many women may be caring for aging parents or relatives and supporting children and taking on more responsibilities at work because you're in a time of life where you may be aspiring into more senior and managerial roles. But it's not exclusively the adult social care sector that's experiencing an aging workforce. The average age of workers in a whole in the wider economy has also increased from around 40 to 43 years. So our workforce of women are also increasing the average age. But we also know for our workforce, it's one of the most ethnically diverse in England. And over 23% of the workforce are people from Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities, making it more diverse than the overall population of England. And the largest difference we have seen are for people of Black ethnicity, who made up 12% of the workforce, only 3% of the total population, but 12% of the workforce. And London has the most diverse workforce demographic across the whole of the regions, which is 68% Black, Asian and minority ethnic people from Black, Asian and minority ethnic groups. And if we break it down into specific roles, then the registered nurse and of which many of our registered managers in social care come from a nursing background. So a registered nurse is one of the most diverse roles, with 42% of workers identifying as Black, Asian and minority ethnic. So we know that around a large proportion of the workforce were British, but we also know that on average, the adult social care sector had a greater reliance on women from non-EU countries rather than EU countries. So 9%, that's about 140,000 filled posts were from people of non-EU nationality. And with the new immigration rules that came into place in the UK, January 21, I think, we knew that there'd be more overseas recruitment and people would come up to take on more senior care worker roles and some regulated professions. And then the visa rules changed in February. So we have even more workers who are coming from overseas to be able to take up roles and jobs in the UK. And why is that important? Because that means that the workforce, which is already quite diverse, is increasing in diversity over the coming months. So we have to think about then how we're supporting the workers who are providing social care. And so with 28% of our workforce being aged 55 and over, and women, and they're from Black and minority ethnic communities who also have a lot of commitments, that's why it's so important that we recognise, understand and acknowledge, not only as women working in social care, but also for those of us who are managers and colleagues in social care, that the many situations that impact for us as women on our health and our ability to do our work and our roles, and in times just for us to manage to keep sane doing everything that we're doing. So the government introduced a 10-year women's health strategy for England. And this 10-year strategy sets out a range of commitments to improve the health of women everywhere, including a plan to transform access to online information and advice. So there are 18 chapters within the strategy and the plan, the 10-year plan. And chapter 13 has a clear focus on menopause. And that's because when they held the call for evidence, when they had the survey, the national survey, menopause was the third most selected topic that people picked to include in the women's health strategy. 48% of people picked this topic because that's how important it is. So the strategy covers the importance of women being provided information, but also has clear action plans about recognition of the symptoms for women, menopausal and perimenopausal symptoms for women working in general, and also for healthcare professionals to be able to recognise the symptoms and to be able to provide support. It also includes the appointment of the first Women's Health Ambassador for England, and that role was taken up by Professor Dame Leslie Regan. And also there's a Deputy Women's Health Ambassador as well. So it's a 10-year strategy. It includes women's health at the front and foremost of it. It's really crucial. It's an important time. And that's why the session that we're doing here is providing a really good introduction and awareness about not only as people working in social care, how we can take care of ourselves and each other, but also managers as well, being really clear and aware about how to support staff members as well. So we have a poll and some questions that we're going to run at the moment to start to get us thinking about just how much we know about self-care and about the care of others as well. So I believe one of my colleagues is going to set the questions for the poll. So we'd like to know a little bit about you and about your age brackets, if you don't mind.
Yes, thank you very much, Tricia. So the questions now has now been launched. If you check the chat box, you will find the questions there, about 5 questions with multiple choice answer. I'm just looking through to see if anyone has answered it yet. Just a few minutes for that.
For some reason, I'm not able to answer.
Maybe because you're a co-host, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Just to let you know, Olayinka, I have tried to answer, but I can't
answer.
Seem to put a response in.
Yeah, because you're a co-host. So it's only allowing, yeah.
Okay.
So I can see some answers here.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. If I take off the co-host for a moment, you would be able to. And Tricia as well.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't understand what question 2 is. It says untitled question choice 1 or 2. What does that mean?
Ignore question 2.
I think that's a question in error. Apologies.
Yeah, ignore question 2. Sorry about that. Can jump into question 3. Okay, we're still waiting for more people to answer the questions.
Yeah, can we?
28% has participated so far. Okay, got 26%.
Is everybody able to?
I think in order to submit, we have to click on.
You have to click on that question 2.
Yeah, so just one of them.
So it's just click anything on that question 2, but it won't let you submit all your answers unless you've answered all of the questions. Apologies for that, but
For the people that's just joining us, we're just taking some poll questions. And in order for you to submit, you need to answer the question 2. So just choose anything, choice A or 2 from there. Got about just a few more minutes to go.
Mm-hmm.
So we're on the last minutes now. There's still time to answer the questions in the poll chats. So this is to give us a brief background about the people that are joining us today. This afternoon. Okay, thank you very much for answering that. The numbers are increasing. Yes. The final 20 seconds. Eight more seconds to go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you very much for taking part in the poll questions. Over to you now, Tricia.
Oh, I thought you were going to read out the answers of the poll.
Okay, let me read out the answers. So the questions we asked about 4 questions, and 73% of people participated in that and were able to answer the questions. So can you tell us which age brackets, the age bracket that we have here we have 30 to 40. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. 30 to 40 years old, about 30% of the people.
Olayinka, sorry, Olayinka, some of your audio's a little bit, I don't know whether it's just me that's struggling to hear.
Okay, I've just shared the results. Can everyone see it? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, but it comes and goes. But I can see the results that you've just shared.
Okay. My audio is not very good. Sorry. With my internet.
Do you want me to? I can just quickly share. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Hello, everyone.
Yes, I can.
Okay. Hello. I'm Jerry McMurdie. I'm also a member of the group Black Women in Care. I'll just quickly run through the poll results. So the first question was asking which age bracket everyone was in, and we've got 30% of people in 30 to 40 years, and again 30% 40 to 50 years. We've got 40% that are 50 to 60 years. Just scrolling down to the next question. So obviously we can see the sort of poll bears out the kind of the demographics that Tricia was alluding to in her presentation very much. Obviously we were ignoring question 2. Question 3 was asking about which phase of your hormonal health you're living in right now. So 20% of people stated they were premenopausal, and 50% are perimenopausal, and we didn't have anyone saying they were postmenopausal, and around 30% don't know. And then the next question was asking if people felt currently supported by their employer, and that's literally 50-50. So 50% said yes, they did feel supported, and the other 50% said no, they did not. And then the final question was asking what support would you like to get from your employer? And 27% asked to create a proper workplace break room. 27% equally said to create a productive environment. So obviously these responses may hopefully elicit more discussion. 18% said they wanted their employer to create an adaptive workplace culture. And by far, the most responses were to encourage a work-life balance, and that was 82% of participants in the survey. So some very clear answers there on expectations around the working environment. So hopefully that's helpful, and that will help frame our conversations and discussions as well. Okay, that's me over and out.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Jerry. And that really does align with the menopause, the ambitions of the menopause task force, which is not only looking at health provision, but again, as I said, education and awareness around all healthcare provision for women, so population and demographics as well, workplace support, looking at research, evidence and data, and supporting women to self-care, which nicely leads on to our other guest speakers. I will just share my screen again. Thank you. So now we're moving into the next session, which aligns great with the presentation and the poll. So now over to you, Maureen Anderson, and your guest, Pamela and Windle, and you're going to talk a little bit about, share your knowledge and your wisdom around women's health and health conditions. And I'll stop sharing now. Thank you.
Here we go. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's now 10 to 1, and I'm here with Pamela for this half an hour. Let's call it a hot flash moment, because there's a lot to cover in a very short space of time. I appreciate you taking time out during your lunch break. I know how incredibly busy we all are. So I want to thank Jerry for the invitation, and Olayinka for agreeing to have us here today. So my name is Maureen Anderson, and I am the founder of MAM, which is M-A-M-M. It actually stands for Maureen Anderson's Menopause Moments, but has changed over time to stand for Melanin Rich and Menopause Moments, to include all of my friends who joined me on my particular journey of understanding what was going on with my own body during 2020, when I wasn't quite sure whether this was a reaction to the stress that myself and my family members were experiencing as our parents were in the early stages of dying, unknown to us. They both passed away within 4 weeks of each other. And as Black women in care, you also, without a doubt, will have experienced considerable stress during the past few years, particularly during the pandemic and ongoing. As a poll has suggested, women want a work-life balance, and that is what Pamela and I will really be advocating for during this conversation. Pamela is a women's health coach. She has a wealth of information. You can follow her on social media, but also look at her website. Today, I'll be asking her some generalised questions. We won't be able to answer anything specific pertaining to yourselves and your health, but I'll encourage you to, book yourselves in and get a free half-an-hour consultation with her. Otherwise, go to your own medical practitioner. So, periods, fertility, and menopause. It's a huge topic. It covers the majority of our lives. Some women start their periods at the age of 9. Some women are still having periods at the age of 57 and 58. And menopause and postmenopause goes on until we are no longer here breathing. So it's a long period where it's all about our women's health. And it's really important that you, that myself, that Pamela puts this high priority on our agenda, and that we encourage our employers to make our lives equally important to their profit margins. Because let's face it, we're all in the workplace to earn money. Our employers are earning money off our backs. And if we can't put our health and well-being first, then they never will. So when someone's asking you just to do another shift, carry another load, unscrew the jar in the cupboard because they don't have the energy, but you should, we have to learn to say no. So Pamela, I'm going to ask you to very briefly introduce yourself before I start asking you some questions, some of which may be personal, and feel free to say, Maureen, I'm not going to answer, you're being too nosy. But this is a safe space. When I'm asking Pamela a question, it may resonate with you. And if you're comfortable using the chat mechanism, please answer as well, if you can. So Pamela, your brief intro, please.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. Thank you, Maureen, for that brief introduction. So yes, I'm Pamela Windle. I am a certified women's health coach. I live in Nottingham, and I support women through that perimenopause transition into the menopause. I also work with organisations around supporting women in the workplace, making sure that the stigmatization around the menopause isn't there so that women can remain in that workforce. I work with women on a one-to-one basis as well, and I'm also a member of the British Standard Institute, creating a policy for small to medium-sized businesses around menstruation to menopause.
Perfect. Thank you, Pamela. I'm going to go straight in because I think it will help some of the women. Although you haven't got women in their 20s here currently in the poll, it's good for us as older women to be able to reassure those younger women what their menstruation journey should look like, what are some of the concerns. We'll move into the fertility stages, and then we'll move into menopause, where we will spend a little bit more time, because that is definitely an area that I'm interested in. So Pamela, how old were you when you had your first period?
So for me, I was 12 years old.
You were 12?
Yes.
And I was 14, which for some people may be considered quite late, but the average age here in the UK is 12. On the African continent, the average age of a girl starting her cycle is 13. whereas in Mexico, it's about 11. So depending on whether you were born here or whether you've come here from another part of the world, your journey of menopause, fertility, postmenopause may be very different depending on your lifestyle and your nutrition. So there are some girls who will have started their period at primary school. That can be quite difficult. And depending on who are in their family will determine how comfortable they are with managing that period, understanding the flow, knowing what it should smell like, whether they have got their good hygiene going on, and whether their cycle is of average length, which would lead on to the fertility, or whether there should be something to be concerned about. So Pamela, from your knowledge and mine, what do you think is the average time that a woman should be bleeding for?
So first of all, let's just talk about the cycle itself. A lot of women get confused when we talk about the cycle and think about the bleed. Well, the bleed is in the cycle, so that's what you need to be aware of. So the average cycle is 28 days. So that's from day one of the period to then the whole of that time to your next period is 28 days. So the average bleed in the period is around 5 to 7 days.
Brilliant. So if at any point it should be much less than that or much longer than that, I have friends who were bleeding for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
What would the suggestion be if it's like 2 days here, 2 days there, then 3 weeks at a time?
Yeah, so if your cycle suddenly changes, so if it's been 5, 7 days for a while, and that's your normal, but if you then start to experience other symptoms like it's shorter, so for 2 days, for example, or 3 weeks, like you've just said, then clearly there's something going on, and that's be an indication to seek medical advice.
Excellent. And again, if anybody in the chat would like to say how old they were when they started their first period, and indeed who supported them through this significant time of their life, that would be quite interesting to know. My background is anthropology, so I'm very curious about people's experiences in this life journey. Thank you, Pamela. Now the smell, like sometimes, like women talk about the scent of their menstrual blood. What is a common smell that we would be familiar with and that wouldn't cause any concern? And then what may be a scent that should cause us some concern? Yeah,
the smell obviously is unique to us, but it shouldn't be pungent. It shouldn't be off-putting. Sort of metallic sort of smell. Depending on what sanitary products you use can vary. So if you use more of a natural product, sort of cotton, rather than synthetic ones, then the smell can vary. But it shouldn't be pungent. So if it's sort of a fishy smell, again, that's kind of an indication to seek medical advice as well. So knowing your own body is really, really important here.
Thank you. That's really important, isn't it? And I think I would probably just add, as a parenting consultant, when it comes to talking to our girls and our boys about periods, development, puberty, that we should do so without shame. We should be encouraging and celebrating this part of their natural journey without us saying, stay away from boys, you can get pregnant. Don't let anybody touch you because you can get pregnant. Those are not helpful words to speak to a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 13-year-old, when actually they're just concerned with what is coming after their bodies. So I'll encourage everyone, if you have children, grandchildren, to be mindful of how you introduce these topics to them, and most of all, be really encouraging and celebratory for that young person's journey. So we'll move on to fertility, because I'm just conscious that we want to make sure that within the age group of the women who are working in this care industry, we know that women are older, having babies. The research is showing that we're leaving it much later now. What can we do to support our good health when we are considering becoming pregnant, because I think a lot more people today are planning pregnancies rather than having unplanned pregnancies.
Yeah. So the other thing I think we need to highlight is perhaps when it comes to fertility or even periods, there are some women that struggle with, hormone imbalances, regardless of being perimenopausal. So endometriosis and PCOS. So for example, if you've got polycystic ovaries syndrome, then your cycle could be irregular. It could be 30 days, it could be 40 days. And so fertility can be problematic for those women. It's not impossible, but for those women, fertility would be problematic. The more overweight you are, that also slows down your chance of being fertile as well. And then there's those women that have endometriosis as well. And that's when the lining of the uterus is actually got endo in the lining of the outside the lining of the uterus. So that's really endometrious tissue outside the uterus. So that is also quite debilitating for men. Periods can be very, very heavy, very painful, particularly for young children. If you're 13 years old and you're having endometriosis, that might be a problem to you because you might have to skip time off school, for example, because it's so painful. So those symptoms can last throughout your life and also be problematic during your time to be when you want to conceive. So when it comes to female health around fertility, it isn't just the responsibility of that female, the male also has responsibility to look after his health as well. So it's not just down to the woman, it is both of them, both of their health, their gut health, their liver health, managing stress, all of those things actually helps you to have better quality eggs, better quality sperm, so that you then be impregnated and then you don't have a baby that's also going to have health issues as a result of that. So supporting your whole body systems prior to conceiving would be the best option. And for some women who take the contraceptive pill, if you're taking the contraceptive pill right up to the time when you want to conceive, ideally, you want to have at least a 3-month break or a year break prior to that, and really focus on your gut and liver health, because as we know, the contraceptive pill has a negative impact on your gut microbiome and your liver and your gallbladder as well. So supporting all those systems will actually enable you to have a better chance of being impregnated and also a healthier pregnancy and child as well.
Yeah, thank you, Pamela. I'm thinking again, based on the poll, the age group of the women that are here, it's like these are conversations that we should be sharing with, the younger women in our lives, whether it's in our workplace or within our community, is encouraging them by our actions also to have this healthier and this work-life balance that, again, you mentioned in the poll. This is something that people are struggling with, and that the employer we ideally would want to support them with. Because if you're experiencing the stresses of your working environment, that will have a major impact on every other aspect of your life, from your sleep patterns to your eating habits to your, your pressures around your heart health, your blood pressure health. All of these things are really key. And given that we are working for longer, we are much older, that these things as an employer really does need to be put in place as a matter of urgency. Otherwise, I'll be trying to recruit younger people, and the cycle will continue, and it's not a positive cycle. It will be a negative cycle of overwork, pressure, which leads on to really debilitating sometimes experiences throughout, from periods to fertility to menopause. So some people are putting that they started their periods at age 12 and age 13. Said I was 14. And so you can see that people are experiencing all of these areas of life differently. Can we touch on the menopause, really? Because this is what we want to get our teeth into. Some people in the chat, in the polls, said they weren't sure what stage of menopause they were at. And so let's talk about the stages of menopause. How many stages are they and what are they?
So there are 3 stages of the menopause, and the menopause basically is, it's just a word that's used for a set of period in a woman's life. So the first stage of the menopause is the transition. It's the early stage of menopause, which we call the perimenopause, and it's the build up towards the menopause. And that can start in your mid-30s or in your mid-40s or early 40s. So early menopause or ovarian failure or insufficiency is before the age of 42, and that actually is a medical condition, but most women enter the perimenopause much later, round about 45, and that can last up to 10 years. And then we have the menopause, and the menopause essentially is one day. And that's the day when you no longer have a bleed of sorts. And so you have to wait 12 months for you to be classified as reaching the menopause. And then after that, we then become, as Maureen said earlier, we're in the post-menopausal stage, where we reside for the remaining of our life. And that doesn't mean that you no longer have symptoms. It just means that you are now in the postmenopausal stage. So many women continue to have symptoms like hot flushes, night sweats, incontinence, for example, or urgency in postmenopausal stage. It doesn't mean that you are still in the perimenopause, you're not in menopause, you've gone through the menopause, you've reached that point, and you are now in the postmenopausal stage. And I think sometimes that's where the confusion is, as women say, well, I'm still having these hot flushes, I must be menopausal. Well, actually, no, you are postmenopause, and therefore your body is different, and you also require something new at that time.
I'm smiling. You can see that I'm smiling as you're talking, because the menopause one day is almost, it's significant, but it's not. But yet it's this umbrella term for the whole of our menopause journey, I like to call it. Menopause isn't a destination. This is an ongoing, exciting time of change for many of us. There are a significant number who experience debilitating symptoms. And this is often because we're not making changes in our lives whilst going through the changes. So I call those significant areas where we can implement changes and thrive, the 3 M's of MAM, which is mouthful, movement, and moments. And Pamela does a course called Flourish and Thrive, which talks about all the rich foods that we can be eating to enhance our menopausal journey, that can support our gut health, that can aid our sleep, that can take away the stresses once we realise what we are in control of and what we simply can't do anything about, like world hunger. I can't lose sleep for people that are starving elsewhere, but I can activate some control over supporting neighbours. That's within my control. I'm much more immediately, that I can immediately affect change there. And I'm also smiling because I do a course for women, and I also do a course for men. And no matter how many times we talk about the stages of menopause, you can guarantee that some of my group will still say they're not sure. And this is about a resistance to accepting that change is happening. So, Pamela, how can we encourage people to embrace this journey of change?
I think some people are in denial, don't want to, accept that they're aging, and actually that's what it is. It's that our bodies are aging, and so that the drop in the hormones as we enter the menopause means that your body is different. And so as a society, we don't want to embrace aging. But it's more than that. It's more than aging. If you want to be there for your grandchildren, you want to feel good, look good, you want to remain in the workplace, then you have to embrace this. You have to look at your body in a different way. And I think for Black women in particularly, it's such an important thing. When we look at our older family members, your mother, your grandparents, what did they have? Did they have the hypertension? Did they have the type 2 diabetes? Did they have the dementia? Because this is what is ahead for us as women as we enter to that menopause phase, post-menopause. Unfortunately, this is what it means for us. So we can do so much for ourselves. We are born at the right time because the research around women's health is growing, and your gut health, your liver health, calming the nervous system, all of those things actually helps us in this phase. And actually, we don't have to suffer. We don't have to have type 2 diabetes, regardless of whether it is genetics, cardiovascular disease. It doesn't have to be yours if you do some work now. The perimenopause actually is a time to put some groundwork in so that you don't struggle in that phase of life. So if you age, just because your mother had heart disease doesn't mean that you have to have it. You can actually do so much through your health. And when it comes to working in care, we know that women in care work hard. So stress actually will impact your body, impacts your hormones throughout your lifespan. You might not have access to good quality foods, for example, and that will actually affect you hormonally as well. But there are certain things that we do culturally that we've forgotten, things like how your mom used to cook. All of those things are great. The herbs and spices that she used will actually support your body and your hormones.
That's lovely. And I'm thinking about, again, my own parents and my mother, and she was also a Black woman in the care sector. She worked for 40 years as an auxiliary nurse, and it was relentless. She, raised her, 8 children. She was under pressure at a time when, the UK was, well, possibly equally brutal, actually, with the racism that was endured. And, I want to pay tribute to all of you, actually, as Black women in care. We know your struggle. We know your journey. And, I can speak for Pamela in that we really want you to put your physical health, your emotional health at the forefront, because you're in this field. Yes, there may be a love, but you're doing this for your family. And we know if something happens to you, someone else will fill your spot. And so if you get the opportunity to be involved in what are the changes that can take place in your workplace, please get involved. By not being involved, they will assume that there's no interest. And as hard as it is to be an activist in the workplace, sometimes you still have to be an activist. It may not benefit you directly, but it will benefit those younger women coming through. And they are also going to be on that menopausal journey. We didn't have any of the 20-year-olds in the house today. There may have been some people in their 30s, if I remember correctly, 30 to 40 and 40 to 50. There was probably 30% in the first category, 30% in the second category, and then 40% in the 50 to 60 category. So if we think about those 30 to 50-year-olds, We don't want them to get to where we are. I'm 56. Pamela, how old are you?
Same with you.
Okay, I'm postmenopausal. Pamela is still
Perimenopause.
Absolutely. We don't want those 30 to 40-year-olds to be in a situation where their elders are, where they're saying we need the work-life balance. It is so crucial that you put in place your mouthfuls. What are you eating when you are doing these shifts? Are they things that will enhance your output, will give you energy, will make you feel that getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get to that first shift is doable? What time are you going to bed at night? How much movement are you doing apart from going from either one client, one ward to the next? You know, how much movement are you doing for your body's well-being? And then what are you doing that gives you joy? So those are the 3 M's of MAM. What are you doing to enhance your joyful moments? Are you knitting? Have you gone back to cake making without eating too much of the cake, I'll add? Have you started painting? Are you doing your nails? What are you doing that brings joy to your life? Because I can assure you, if you are not putting yourself first and giving yourself your joy, your employer will not be doing that. I've not heard of any employer who is saying, come on, guys, let's have half a day and go off and be creative. It rarely happens. And as Black women go, we find taking time out for ourselves incredibly hard. We give to others. People will ask you, can you do it? And the first thing we say is yes, forgetting that actually we've already said yes to 50 other people. We are always in service, and this is not a bad thing, but we cannot be in service to the detriment of ourselves. So I'm asking you again, if you can put into the chat, what have you done over the last 2 weeks that bring you joy? And I'll ask Pamela, what have you done, Pamela, in the last 2 weeks that brings you joy?
Well, Maureen, you know, the simplest things bring me joy. So for me, I bring joy into my life every day. Yeah, it doesn't have to be something big. So for example, I make myself like a cacao tea, you know, so it's hot chocolate with some ginger and cinnamon, and I sit and I sip it and I love it. It's absolutely wonderful. So something as simple as that could bring me joy. It could be just buying some flowers or going for a walk with a friend who has a dog. That brings me joy. Yeah, or just having a hug with my daughter. You know, anything can bring you joy. It doesn't have to be something big. It doesn't have to cost anything. It could be eating your favorite food. I love the smell of plantain. That brings me joy because it reminds me of my mom. So joy could be absolutely anything. It doesn't have to be a big thing. You don't have to have a massage. You don't have to go and get your nails done. It could be something so simple.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Thinking about your mom, thinking about my parents, and particularly my mother, I can't remember when she ever did go and buy herself a drink in a cafe. She would rush down to the market, get all of the shopping, lug it all back. As teenagers, we were just thinking, well, that's what she does. We weren't thinking that she was breaking her back for us. But now things are very different. You mentioned giving yourself or getting a hug with your daughter, given that it is International Women's Day and the theme is equity and remind me, equity, see, that's a brain fog moment. Embrace equity. Yeah. And so whilst we're thinking about embracing equity, they're asking everyone to give themselves a hug. So if you can, take a deep breath, everyone, and give yourselves a hug. Because some of us may not have anyone that's hugging us at the moment. I've got my dog and all he wants to do is for me to hug him. He doesn't hug me back yet. He's training, but gives yourself a hug. Tricia, did you give yourself a hug? Let me see your hands going up there. Okay, excellent. And we can take time out for ourselves by taking a deep breath. Only for a couple of minutes, we can do that. It doesn't cost a lot, but it will give you so much more than you are expending. So give yourselves a hug every day. Don't wait for International Women's Day to show you how to hug yourself. love yourself, make you the priority, and breathe. Keep the breathing going. Pamela, you mentioned something earlier to me about the importance of breath work.
Yeah. So nitric oxide is like a natural component that we have in our bodies. And unfortunately, as we age, nitric oxide depletes. And there's a link with that with cardiovascular disease. And for Black women, cardiovascular disease is a big problem for us. Particularly, in that perimenopause, postmenopausal phase of life. So one of the things that we can do to increase our nitric oxide is breathe. And I just breathe naturally as we're breathing now, but it's actually stopping and purposely breathing, really filling up our diaphragm, pausing, really breathing in wide and full, and breathing out really, really slowly. And unfortunately, as we are stressed, we generally don't breathe very well. We breathe from the upper chest rather than from the lower. So just breathe in, taking a moment to breathe fully on a regular basis, not just once a day. It could incorporate it with, doing something else, like making a cup of tea or washing your hands. Just doing it throughout the day will really help to calm the nervous system down, which will support your body. And, we've talked about workplace, haven't we, Maureen, together? And the menopause in the workplace is growing. Companies are taking on board that they do need to support women. And some companies are doing it as a bit of a tick box exercise, not really doing it properly. There needs to be a cultural change, and that was one of the questions in the poll, isn't it? There needs to be a cultural change for it to work. You can't just have a policy in place. You can't just have a one-off training. Line managers, senior leaders really need to understand the in and outs of what happens to women in this phase, and then helping women to identify the early signs of perimenopause, which was one of the questions in the chat. But yes, employers do have a responsibility. Right now, there isn't any legislation around the menopause in the workplace. However, 2 million women in the UK are in that age bracket of perimenopause. And then, in 2030, we've got the next lot of women, and they're in the 30s, that are going to be moving up into that phase as well. And as we know, women are working for much longer. So therefore, this is where the self-care comes in, because we can't rely on your employers to do everything. They can do some of it, but the self-care, the understanding of your body, understanding how you look after yourself, your unique journey, whether you are in the pre-menopause, so you're in your 20s and 30s, or even your early 40s, or maybe mid to late 40s, you still may be in that pre-menopause. And pre-menopause means that you're not in perimenopause, if you don't know what that means. So if you look after yourself in those phases, sleep well, hydrate, Maureen's just had a drink, hydrate, eat good quality food as best that you can, add those practices in, like breath work, joy into your life on a regular basis. It doesn't have to be this big occasion. All of those things will help you, and your workplace then supporting you in that. It means that you have a better transition into that phase of life.
Thank you, Pamela. I'm just conscious of the time, Jerry. I'm looking at you to see if you're going to tell me that it's like 25 past.
Hi, yes, I was just letting you just do that last session, or last couple of key points, because I think they're really important. The self-care message is the one that we can all have control over and we can all take away. And you've given us a lot of information, so thank you both so much. I know it's a big, huge topic to cover, hormonal health, given it starts from, let's say, 10 really through to whenever. But it is really, really important. It's become much more relevant in the workplace, Tricia's stats alluded to, you know, we're 50% of the workforce, and we know most work sectors have got major challenges in keeping their staff, not just getting the new staff. If you're not doing what you should be for women and for women's health in the workplace as an employer, you will feel the consequences of that. And I think as women, we need to understand that we have that power, and we need to make sure we look after ourselves, look after each other. We can be good employees, but it's a two-way street. We don't always have to be heavily kind of quoting the legislation verbatim, but employers do need to understand that. I think COVID has amplified the discussions about work-life balance anyway, but equally the discussions and the action plans that are being developed for menopause through government and through individual employers are also going to be a way to move that forward too. So thank you both so much for sharing your knowledge and your insights and being so generous with your time, because we really appreciate it. We've had some questions already, but I'm just going to hand over to Tricia to see if she just wants to touch on some particular points regarding the employment and the employer in the workplace, and then we'll open for questions.
Thank you, Jerry. And again, I'm mindful of the time as well. So I would advise for any managers or employers that, as we've heard today, there is legislation, there's guidance, there's government guidance that we should be following to support people, including, and I have to say including, because often when we think about government guidance and policy, we focus on certain areas and we completely forget including women in the workforce, as if it's just a natural thing that we're going through the daily struggles and challenges, and we just accept it. So the guidance, the government guidance, the legislative guidance covers all protected characteristics, and gender and women is one of those protected characteristics. So please follow the guidance. And we've heard today the efforts and support that we can make as managers, and the rights that we have as workers to be able to support people and ourselves in the workforce. And I really, really loved and echoed with what Maureen and Pamela were saying around embracing and understanding the menopause. Lean into it, recognize it, acknowledge it, understand it's self-care. It's important because we are important. So we need to acknowledge the challenges that we're going through, because I'm also to blame. I will just keep going until I flag at the end of it. And there's nothing brave about it. We need to recognize this is self-care. That's it for me for now. We'll open for questions.
Thank you.
Maureen, I think Maureen had her hand up.
Oh, beg your pardon, Maureen. Okay.
No, sorry, I was just clicking Tricia in agreement that self-care all the way. So yeah, let's have some questions.
I have seen one in the chat so far. I'm just going to keep scrolling, and it's asking about if you don't have the typical symptoms, so the hot flushes, which everybody has heard about, knows about, but if you're not getting that, how could you know you're starting a different, your menopause may be starting? What would you do? What should you do?
Yeah, so I think it was about perimenopause, wasn't it? So the signs could be very, very subtle. So changes in the length of your menstrual cycle. So you might have gone from, if your cycle is 28 days, it might have gone to 26 days. So very subtle changes. It could be that your energy around your period, you suddenly feel a bit more exhausted around your period. Maybe you're struggling to lose weight, you're gaining weight around your midsection, whereas before you managed that weight, so your waistline is going. It could be that your mood changes again around your period. Maybe you feel a bit down or a bit irritated more, or maybe, your libido is waning as well. So there are the really subtle signs that you're entering the perimenopause. Hot flushes generally come much later. The perimenopause, I believe, comes in 2 phases. So you have the early phase where the signs I've just talked about could be happening, or your period could be getting heavier as well. And then you have the other side where you aren't having a regular cycle, maybe, and that's when the hot flushes can actually appear. So hopefully that's helped you.
Thanks very much, Pamela. There's been another comment that's, I think many of us can relate to, particularly in the last 2 years, about screen time and sitting in front of screens for very, very long periods of time, which we know we shouldn't do. And we're very good at telling kids and teenagers about the screen, but actually, I know I'm very guilty of it and have been guilty of it. Any tips, any suggestions, advice as to what to do?
Yeah, I mean, if it's your employer and it's their computer, you can ask them to put filters on your screen to block out those blue lights. You can get blue light blocking glasses as well. You could take regular breaks. So you could sit near a window if you're lucky enough, and so that you're moving your gaze away from your screen time to time and looking into natural daylight. The other thing is making sure that you aren't on your screen time close to bed, because that will tell your brain that you are awake and delay your hormone for sleep. So, and that hormone for sleep actually supports your immune system. So it's really important. So there are some of the things that you can do to reduce your exposure to blue light, and not having a TV in your bedroom as well, and watching that just before you go to sleep.
Yes, I see a few grins there, maybe guilty grins. I'll say nothing. Perhaps just one or two more. I've got a question I just perhaps wanted to pose. The other thing around the menopause, which I think it's a taboo for a reason, and it's been a taboo for many years, because I think, as Maureen's pointed out, it's linked to, and Pamela, aging, and maybe women obviously traditionally have tended to fear that they tended to disappear when they got to a certain age. You never used to see, up until recently, older women on the screen in parts where they were leading and taking pivotal roles. They were always peripheral figures, or the shrewish sort of woman, and these caricatures. I think that's changing, which is positive. Only this year we've had this fabulous film, The Woman King, with the amazing Viola Davis and other roles like that are only just starting, but that only happened because she made it happen. She's still fighting that big tide in Hollywood of what, and I think there is an issue about seeing women of colour in leading pivotal roles, which I think society still struggles with. But we are forging ahead. We've got, women here on this screen that are doing that. Other women in the workplace. We've had our mothers, our aunties that have been there and had paved the way in different ways to help us get there. But we need to also do our bit and keep supporting others that are coming behind us. And
absolutely. Absolutely, Jerry. And I would also say that the narrative about us being invisible, as Black women, we are visible. You can walk down the street and a young person, say in their 20s or 30s, will say, "Mummy," to me, "do you need some help?" They're recognizing us as elders when we get to a certain age. But I think for the white woman, she's feeling usurped and invisible because they're not giving her the same amount of respect. But our young people, some may be having some challenges with the systems, recognize us as older, wiser women. And so we're still getting that. And I think this is the rub, the narratives. If we're looking at mainstream, well, that's not our mainstream. If we look at our own mainstream, we are important. We are wise people that young people and adults will come to for guidance. So I think we can balance it out. We're good. We are the woman king in our own lives. We just need to champion, because we're not very good at promoting ourselves. You know, we're thankful for you to giving us this platform. But, you know, a lot of us, and it would be interesting to know from your women, are they on social media? Because we post things on social media. We don't get the same traction. The white woman, however, posts, and all of her white people from here to Kingdom Come are going to follow her and support her. But for the Black woman, if you're not going to church, if you're not going to the club, if you're not, I don't know, where else are we? I don't know, in the workplace, we're not getting the same kind of support because we're on that daily grind in our family units, doing what we can do, and we just about look up for lunchtime to come to a group like this. If this wasn't on at lunchtime, I'm not sure how many people would come to us. So we need to be conscious as to where do you get your information from and how can we support you outside of the lunch break?
Yeah. Thanks, Maureen.
Can I just add to that, actually?
Yes.
About that notion about aging. And, you know, there's that thing, isn't it? Black women don't crack. We all generally look younger than our white counterparts. We do. However, there's still stuff going on the inside, and Black women are susceptible to cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes out of any other race. So there's something happening, isn't there? Is it, you know, that systemic racism that we've had since we've been children? If you've brought up and raised in this country and went to school in this country, you know, all the subtle racisms we experience, and then, you know, where are Black women generally, the carers in society, looking after others, all of those things, you know, don't have access to good quality food. Maureen's alluded to the stress that we're under as well. You know, so all of those things, even though on the outside we don't age like our white counterparts, but on a cellular level, our bodies are struggling. And so for the younger women, we need to educate them. We need to educate ourselves and pass that on to younger women and men. So it's not just a woman thing, it's a whole family thing, a whole cultural thing.
Thanks. I think we've probably got one last question I just want to ask on someone's behalf. And they were asking about how easy can you, or is it to get blood tests, particularly linked to the menopause and hormonal tests from your GP? She described having to struggle and to push to get one. Any suggestions or advice on that?
So NICE guidelines said that not to test women's hormones above the age of 45, because in the perimenopause, the hormones are fluctuating. So depending what day you test your hormones, it might give a true reflection or a false reflection. It might be different tomorrow. So that's the whole reason why. However, I do still believe that women should have their hormones tested, because why not? So I think go along to your GP and ask them if they agree you want to have it done. If you're still having a menstrual cycle, you want to have the test on day 3 of your cycle. If you're not having a cycle, then to be honest, there's no point. You know that you are in the perimenopausal phase. You can have private tests. So there's lots of companies out there. MediCheck is a company that I like to use, and you can have your own private test. I do tests of hormones, but not through blood. I do them through urine. That actually is more accurate level of your hormones as well. And we're not just looking at your hormones, looking at your building blocks to making those hormones as well. And also your cortisol levels, making sure that isn't the reason why you are having your symptoms that you're experiencing. So yeah, to summarize, you can have your test done, but you might need to seek another GP or go private.
Okay. Thank you. I'm conscious of time. I know we may have other questions, but we have shared Maureen and Pamela's contact details, and they're very happy for you to reach out to them and to follow up with them as well, because as I say, we only really had a snapshot of their knowledge and expertise in this session. So I'm going to wind up and hand over to Olayinka now. Thank you both.
Thank you very much, Gary, and thank you so much to our speakers today and this afternoon, to Maureen and to Pamela for sharing such an insightful topic. And I'm not in my perimenopause yet, but I've learned so much today that will definitely help me. And I believe there's still so much more to learn from both of you. And so the link, you can please try to visit their website, not just try, because you will definitely need it. And there's still so much to learn about ourselves, about hormonal changes. And for people that have not been able to join us today, or maybe you join us late, you'll be able to watch this video on our YouTube page at blackwomeninCare.com. By the end of today, it should be available for you to watch. So please do visit Maureen's website. Pamela's website is not there, but I believe it's the same. So you'll be able to link with Pamela through the MAM website. So don't forget, mouthful, about our mouths, about movement, the triple M, and also about the moment. So mouthful, the triple M, never forget that. If there's anything you haven't taken away today, never forget the triple M. So we're encouraging you as well to join us at Black Women in Care. We equip our members with tools and resources that is required for you to be exceptional. I'm just going to lean back. To be exceptional professionally, even personally. And that's why we are having this forum today. So you can visit our website, www.blackwomeninCare.com, and register for a free membership. It is absolutely free, and we do come on often to share insightful topics with you. And we hope you'll be able to join us. Thank you so much, Tricia, as well, for joining us and also representing Skills for Care. We absolutely, it's been an insightful afternoon. I'm sure everyone will agree with me. So to say thank you to our speakers and to Jerry as well for moderating it, can we give all our speakers a round of applause in the chat? Or you can use the chat or use the reaction button to say thank you. That's a token from us. So to say thank you to our speakers this afternoon. And thank you to you as well for lunching and learning with us this afternoon. We hope you've had a great afternoon with us, and we hope you'll be able to register and be in contact with our health coach this afternoon. And for whatever you do, don't forget your triple M. Take, whatever you put in your mouth before you go to work, because we know how stressed we could be working within the health and social care. And whilst you're working as well, ensure that you're getting that movement, doing the little works that you can. And after work, have some moment to yourself. Okay, remember, bless and have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you very much.